Hey everyone, welcome back to the Jack and Joe show. And a huge thank you to Jack Stroutley for once again filling in. More versatile than Dennis Adoy and Ola Aina combined, he is. But I'm back from illness. And Jack, how are you doing?
Very well. In fact, we were just talking off air about things that off the pitch that nothing's really happened apart from on the pitch stuff. And then you say the words Ola Aina, and suddenly,
Great
I don't know
point.
if you saw the article on Saturday morning that were linked, but we can get onto that. But yeah, I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, very well. And even better after you've reminded me of that fantastic transfer rumour,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to fill up my mental capacity from now until about the end of August. But we did have a game on Saturday, and I think it's fair to say, Jack, that it was a pleasant surprise more than anything. We were going into it quite pessimistic. I think as we had the right to be after our last 5 games in all competitions being defeats, the one before that in the league being the draw against Wolves. So the only win in that point since Brighton was the cup game against our next opponent, Leeds. But you're going to a game at Goodison Park where it's all to play for, a place that hasn't been a happy hunting ground for us at any point other than in lockdown. And you're thinking, is this a Sean Dyche masterclass 1-0 win? Are we going to get a sniff? And I would have 100% taken a point going into that
Mm.
game on Saturday. But what we got, Jack, was a great performance and a great victory and completely deserved as well.
Yeah, it was deserved, and I thought we played really, really well. But I am concerned. Was concerned by the way in which Everton approached the game.
Yeah.
I said it on the quick take that the team news didn't fill the Everton fans with a whole load of confidence. And there are some good Everton YouTube outlets that I've sort of been dabbling in the last few days to sort of get their reaction. Joe, they're absolutely furious that they lost this game and in the manner in which they did it as well. Um, I'm really pleased for our own club and our own fan base that we've got a win after a few weeks of discontent, to say the least. But it means we're on 42 points. It means we can we can definitely just sit back and enjoy the rest of the season and enjoy what we've got to offer for the rest of the season. I'm super impressed with the way we approached that game, especially myself and Jack talking about whether we will start Vinicius, and we didn't, and that alternative option of Dan James, which was a surprise to everyone. I would have gone with Bobby Deagled over Reed, but now even going towards other games this season before Mitrovic is back, Dan James for me would be the number one choice. How did you perceive the game? Did you watch it on a stream?
Yeah, me and my dad watched it on a stream. When the team news came out, we were both a little bit perplexed, but also thinking, you know what? Well, plan B, which was Vinicius, wasn't working. Let's go with plan C. And you know what? It worked a treat. And not just James, Wilson performed really, really well on the right-hand side. The best we've seen him since probably around this time last year at the end of the championship season. Because like everyone, he sort of petered off a bit at the end when we were all drunk every game. But it was a great performance from him. It was a great performance from the whole team. But that performance from Dan James has really almost breathed new life into the season for me because I was a bit pessimistic about every game going forward, thinking we don't really have a plan without Mitrovic. We don't really have a way of playing that teams can't easily deal with. And that's just thrown out the window. And it's such a shame that we're going to play Leeds next where
Yeah.
Dan James can't play. Although I'm sure that he'll get his place back for Villa, which we'll talk about in a bit as well. That's next week,
Mm.
unless, someone steps in and does well. But I think we'll come on to talk about our team for the Leeds game in a minute, Jack. But I think we both agree it has to be the same system. With no disrespect to Vinicius, I don't think he warrants coming back in after the way that we played. It was reminiscent of prime, Aluko, Cabano, Aite, when there's no out-and-out striker, target man. It's just 3 quick forwards that can almost interchange with Pereira coming from deep as well. Well, not too deep, but coming from behind where they were playing.
Mm.
That was a great option there as well. And we could have easily scored more than the 3 that we did on Saturday. But it was a great display. Me and my dad said to each other, when it went to 1-1 with a McNeil goal that capitalised on a rare mistake from Polina, great finish, mind. This has got shades of the Bournemouth game where we controlled it in the early stages, but we've let them back into it. Can we deal with it? And we did. We did exactly what we should have done against Bournemouth, which was just capitalise on the fact that on the ball, we're a better side. And I think that once we turned it into a bit of a end-to-end counter-attacking game, that really worked in our favour. Whereas for Everton, it's all about being physical, set pieces, not giving us time on the ball. We didn't need time on the ball when we were playing on the counter-attack and doing it with such aplomb. So it was great. And Jack, our next opponents are going to be on the floor after last night. They lost 6-1 to Liverpool. Just before that, they'd lost 5-1 to Palace, and they're just a complete second half capitulation. What are you thinking ahead of this one in terms of the team that you play and also in terms of your prediction? You almost think there's got to be a reaction from Leeds, but you were expecting a reaction last night. So it's very difficult to see how they can turn this one around.
Well, it was incredibly evident. Obviously, Liverpool's quality is completely different to ours, but the ease they counter-attacked Leeds and how high Leeds were playing as their three at the back, they were really high up. And in that second half, there was a goal, I think the third, Yotta's goal. They had the ball, Leeds on the edge of Liverpool's area. Henderson wins it, and suddenly they break. Robertson darts past one, and maybe it was Salah's fourth. I'm not sure. All the goals from the Palace and the Liverpool game last night just kind of mold into one because they all look very, very similar. Caught out. And when Leeds came to the Cottage in the FA Cup, I have to say we were second best, and they should have scored and arguably could have gone through that night if not for a couple of worldies. I expect a reaction. I expect probably a more reserved approach, maybe thinking we need a point here rather than let's go all out for the win. Because if they leave themselves that exposed with whoever we will play, we'll get onto it in a second, but at least with Willian and Wilson and James, perhaps, no, not James, we will be able to hit them on the break with pace if Solomon is there as well. And Leeds have just really, really shocked me into how quickly they can capitulate in a game. And if we have that element of control over them in that midfield with Reed and Paulinho, we could have them. And I tell you what, I do wonder now whether with Bournemouth pulling away, Leicester still in trouble, Everton were poor on Saturday, Leeds are really vulnerable. And can we add to those woes? Perhaps. I do think that if they're without Bamford again, Sinistero went off injured, they've still got no Tyler Adams, it's looking a bit bleak for them. And I really think we could have them.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that the loss you've said there of Tyler Adams, you've definitely seen it's evident in games like last night. They just had no midfield control whatsoever. Rocker and McKennie McKennie lost the ball for the second goal in quite poor fashion, but it was just so easy to play through them. And I think if Adams is there, you just don't have that luxury. Don't get me wrong, he's no Paulinho, obviously, but he's their equivalent. He's been great for them. I agree with you, and I think if we get the first goal here, they could crumble because until 35 minutes yesterday, there was nothing spectacular from them, no attacking threat whatsoever, but defensively they were fine. Liverpool had done nothing until that point, but once that first goal went in, and I don't think it should have counted, the floodgates opened.
The same with Palace as well, though.
Exactly the same with Palace. Until Palace, in fact, in that Palace game, even more so because they were the better team. They could have been 2 or 3 goals up. Sam Johnson was having a wonderful game in goal for Palace in his return to probably his first appearance actually in the league for the team. I really am confident after seeing the way that we dealt with Everton. But I do agree that Leeds will probably come here and think that a point is a good result, whereas Everton probably thought a win or nothing and left far more space. And I think Leeds will leave. In terms of who would I change in the team, I think that Tosin was great again. And I'm a big Diop fan, but I think that Tosin should keep his place. And I think other than that, the only question mark, in my opinion, is who replaces Dan James. And I think that I would replace him with Bobby Reed. And my reasoning for that is that Solomon off the bench, I prefer. And Bobby, we tried him there against Brighton. This is such a different game. And I really like the fact that Bobby can go over to the right or the left where he's played. He can also drop deeper. So that's who I'd go with. In terms of my score prediction, and I'll hand over to you after this, Jack, but I'm confident. I do think that Leeds can pose us some threat, especially if Sinistera is not out for the game. But Willie Notto, who's been on the bench recently, I'm sure he'll be involved. Maybe Somerville as well, who caused us some problems when he came off the bench in the away game and scored that consolation in injury time. I'm going to go for a 3-1 Fulham win, the same score as Saturday. But I am confident of getting a result here.
Okay, yeah. I agree with you on the team news. I was sort of flirting with the idea of playing Solomon as a striker or in
Me
that
too.
Dan James role, but I just don't think it would suit him, and I think it would be wasteful. And I think after 60 minutes, if things were getting frustrated, we'd have to change it, and suddenly you're playing backwards. So I would start Bobby Reed, and then Solomon is that option either on the wing or down the middle if need be. And yeah, I mean, Tosin won all his duels on Saturday. Yeah. He was phenomenal, like really good. I'm really pleased for him because he wasn't really getting a look in when Diop was just steamrolling through the team and starting every game. And Tim Ream has obviously been irreplaceable as well, which is still even now bonkers to say, but he's been magnificent. So pleased for Tosin. It does beg the question now, are we going to actually try and tie him down to a new contract? Is he going to leave in the summer? These are conversations we can have at the end of the season. Score prediction. I think it's going to be one of those ones where we take the lead in the first half, Leeds come knocking on the door, and then we hit them on the break with a 2-0 win. Okay. Similar to the Forest game. But I'd be surprised if we kept a clean sheet, but I'd like to think we can. So 2-0 to Fulham. And Joe, the relegation battle it's still hotting up. It's still interesting. I just was so taken aback by the lack of urgency from Everton on Saturday for a team who on paper would look at our fixture and go, we have to win. We barely got out of second gear at times. It was extraordinary. And our next opponents are against the Villa team, who are the polar opposite. They've just beaten Newcastle 3-0. I think Ollie Watkins is the most informed striker in the league right now. He has to be in the next England squad as that backup to Harry Kane. And I'm really impressed with the way Unai Emery has taken over this team. Bear in mind, when we beat Villa, they just sacked Gerrard. They were like 17th, 16th, and now they're a 6th and looking quite a good position to get European football. It's obviously hard to reference a game after a game that hasn't even taken place yet.
Yeah.
But what do you expect from this Villa team?
I expect such a tough game. I watched that Newcastle fixture on Saturday, and I thought they were incredible because Newcastle are a great team, but that they destroyed them. It could have been way more than 3. And Watkins had a wonderful performance that really reminded me of Cavani for United when they came to us during lockdown. In terms of his off-the-ball movement, just sublime. The way he could run the channels, the way he could hold up play, the way that he was just always getting in space in behind and capped it off with a goal as well. Albeit Cavani's against us was crap and I didn't like it. The other one didn't count, by the way. The other one shouldn't have counted, but we won't get into that right now.
Yeah.
But the speed that I would snap your hand off for a point in this game would defy physics, Jack. That being said, brilliant. If we could somehow come away with a win here, you know, this Everton win has opened up my eyes to the fact that we could still go up a couple of places in the table. I'm not saying necessarily Europe, but we're 1 point behind Brentford and we've got a game in hand. They've also probably got arguably a harder run in than we do, and they've been in worse form now if you take into account the Everton game and their fixture, which was the 2-0 loss at Wolves. A lot of their fans saying similar to we were this time last week, on the beach, where's the fight, etc. So it'll be interesting what happens there. You know, our aim is obviously finishing above them and Chelsea if we can. But this Villa game will be tough, but they're not unbeatable. You know, West Ham got a point against them a couple of weeks ago. Everton actually had the better of the play against them in that home game where they won 2-0 a few weeks ago. It was just that Villa were more clinical. So we'll have chances. Newcastle had chances even though they were well below par at the weekend. But it's going to be a really tough game. And, you know, aside from the obvious, you know, City, Liverpool, and United, this is by far our toughest game of the remaining fixtures, by far and away. And, Unai Emery's done a wonderful job. And he's just got everyone playing well. And it's interesting to see that Alex Moreno at left back, who he was strongly linked to in the summer, has come in and performed wonderfully so far. There were worries about him defensively. That hasn't been an issue. But going forward, he's been exactly what we all thought he would be, which is fantastic, chipping in with assists and beating Lucas Digne to the starting spot at the moment. But this is one where I'd 100% take a point, similar to that Brighton away game. Obviously, we did better than that then. But I'm thinking of team news for this one. You're thinking that Dan James most likely comes back in unless someone else performs really well, just to have that speed on the break. I don't think it's worth doing a score prediction because we don't know what happens on Saturday yet. But Jack, do you have anything to add on Villa?
Well, I was going to say, just in terms of the fact it's a midweek game, I would not be surprised if we did actually put Diop in for that game against Villa, just to rotate. Obviously, you've got Manchester City on the weekend afterwards as well, which is going to be a hell of a game in the context of their season. But Villa have been absolutely brilliant. I managed to catch a bit of the game before the Everton game, and every time I looked up, it was Watkins. It was just blistering, the way in which they attack, the way they start games as well, Villa. Really, really, I mean, even when they lost 4-2 to Arsenal a few weeks ago, in fact, quite a long time ago, they still absolutely flew out and were well in the game up to 90 minutes. McGinn with a great goal against Chelsea a few weeks ago. They won at the Bridge, of course. Watkins with another goal. This is as tough as it gets. And of course, Aston Villa and Fulham have got a big history. And we beat them in a playoff final. We were in the Championship together. We were in the Premier League together, and they. I can't remember now. They obviously they stayed up when we were down, and then they stayed up again when we went down. In the lockdown season, they thrashed us at our place. That 3-0 defeat, that was the most horrendous night of supporting Fulham. They beat us in that game. We thought we were gonna stay up that day when we won up with Mitrovic. They beat us 3-1 the last time we played them. But the way in which their team has transitioned now, and even without the likes of Coutinho, he doesn't really get much of a look in. They got Bailey, Buendia, Watkins. It just looks very, very exciting. And I have to take my hat off to Unai Emery, who's basically revolutionised their whole season. They were so doom and gloom after that game against us when we beat them 3-0 in pretty easy style as well. So I'm very excited. I have no idea what the score prediction is, but I've never been more excited to watch an opponent play than this because there's not much riding on our season anymore. I can sort of appreciate who we're playing in the opposition. And the way in which this Villa team are playing right now, especially at Villa Park, I'm really looking forward to seeing how they fare against us. So, Joe, let's go back to the beginning. Ola Aina, apparently, I mean, it's all gone quiet in the last few days, but the article on Saturday was that we're going to be picking up on a free. This is scenes we incredibly love to see.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know the validity of the source, but it's an Italian news article which just suggests that he's coming to Fulham in the summer. And if that is true, I think that would be wonderful news because that solves any issues about a backup left back, solves any issues about a backup right back, solves any issues about an additional backup centre back, and he can even fill in defensive midfield as he did in away to QPR in the Cup when we won 2-0 after extra time. So this is just. And Jack Stradley loves this quote in that he's the Premier League quality Dennis Odoi. And I really think that sums him up in that he's so versatile and he's Premier League quality and he could 100% do a job for us. And I would love to see it, especially on a free. I think it's smart business.
It's so smart.
It's just, is it too smart? Is it too good to be true? I don't know. But I would love it. And I know there's a few people that say, don't look back. I think that's a really weird way of thinking in general, because, for example, if Anderson was free tomorrow for £5 million, we'd all want him back. If, there's other examples that you could have of a great player that's available. You can't just never look back. I'm not saying rebuild the team that we went down with by any stretch of the imagination, but we've got a useful squad player available for free. Why not? It really improves our squad depth instantly, and he covers several positions.
Yeah, and he's not. He doesn't replace Robinson. He doesn't replace Tete, but he's the option, a safe pair of hands you want to bring off the bench or start a game if need be, if suspensions or injuries come into play. For me, it's such an ideal signing who covers such a range of positions, and in our situation where, well, in any team situation where you just need to rotate, he's just the ideal rotation player. And like you say, for a free, there's nothing to complain about this. You can look back at his performances at Torino this season, and I don't know. I need to look into it and say, oh, is he even that good? But going off what we saw under Parker in a much defensively minded system, if he was given the license to bomb on a little bit, I think we'd see some really good stuff from Ola Aina. So if that was our first summer signing, I'm not saying it's going to be, I would be over the moon, Joe. And we are rapidly, not really rapidly, but approaching the end of the season, which means we will have to start looking at the squad and seeing how we're going to improve for next season, which is such a lovely place to be because, you know the history. We've been up and down like a, well, not that, whatever. So I don't want to say the word yo-yo, that's the thing. But let me get your thoughts on the fact that we have hit 40 points, now have hit 42, and there is that guarantee now we'll be Premier League next season. And it's kind of been, talked about in the fan base a lot over the last few weeks because we've known it's been, oh, there's the doorbell. It's Luke. Yeah, how do you feel that we're staying up, basically? That's the question.
Wonderful. And it shouldn't go under the radar, just the fact that it's been, guaranteed for a little while now, even though some people have been a bit worried, which is understandable knowing our history, as you said, but it has been guaranteed for a while, if not mathematically, then just mentally. And it's just a wonderful feeling because, Jack, if you'd have told me, it was around this time under Parker where I believe it's around the time that we lost to Wolves and Villa, like you said, and Leeds. It was that sort of period where it was the start of that dreadful run at the end of the season. We don't have to worry about that. If we go on a dreadful run now, obviously it's not ideal. I don't want that to happen. It's not the end of the world, and I don't want that to happen, as I've said, but it's just about the stress-free nature of it, and we can approach games with confidence, knowing that we don't have anything crucial to play for. We can play with just a free spirit and just go at teams. We play Man City in a couple of weeks. Why not have a go? I mean, I don't have too much of a go. We don't leave ourselves too open, but do you know what I mean? We don't have to go into that game with fear, is what I mean, really. And hopefully it gives players that we're trying to keep hold of, Palhinha, Robinson, Solomon, Willian, trying to convince him for another year. It's one of those where we're just basically going, look, we're a Premier League team. We're going to be a Premier League team next season. This is what we're about. And do you want to be here as part of the journey to improve next season and finish even higher up the league? Wonderful achievement, wonderful feeling, wonderful squad, and hopefully a wonderful summer ahead where we can attract bigger names. We can keep hold of what we've already got. And hopefully just a positive end to the season to cap off what's been let's face it, a brilliant season, which was in danger of petering out. But when we say petering out, that's petering out to still something above what we expected.
And that is perfectly summed up. I think that we will endure a summer where we're going to be hearing a lot about Palhinha and his price tag and the teams that are interested. That's going to be quite squeaky bum time, I reckon. I don't know whether he will necessarily stay on for another season. I'd like to think he would, given he's got another 5 years on his contract, will boost his value astronomically. I'm looking at this game against Liverpool, our game in hand, as just like you just said against City, just go for it. I mean, Liverpool are obviously still trying to get into the top four. They're obviously trying to still get into Europe. They could probably still do that. But I really think that Fulham could go to Anfield and just really express themselves.
Yeah.
And obviously, you don't leave yourself too open like Leeds did last night because you'll get an absolute bagful against you. But I do think there are, obviously we'll get onto it when we play them, but there are opportunities there. And I think that there's just so much pride to play for right now, and we are now an established Premier League team for this season at least. I don't fear going to places like Anfield or hosting City because it's just like, well, we have no consequences to losing the game anyway, apart from just a little bit of a loss. Just go for it. I don't know. I'm just really pleased that Fulham are in this situation. It hasn't happened since 11, 12, 12, 13, and it's just refreshing. It's just refreshing.
Yeah, it is.
There are so many superlatives that we've given this team this season. There are so many. You say, I hope we don't go on a bad run. I feel like we have been on our bad run in the last 4 or 5 games, and that we could be at the end of it now after that. And one win does breed confidence. And going into a game against Leeds, who are literally lowest of the low right now, if we get 2 wins in 2, we suddenly sit on 45 points. It's great. It's great, honestly. And obviously, Bernd Leno and Paulinho have been nominated for Premier League Team of the Season, which is always good to see as well. Joe, I think that's it today.
I think that's it. Really good vibes around the club, on the pitch. And, great feeling going into this Leeds game, thinking we are not the team that's involved in relegation battle. And I looked at these fixtures, as did you. We looked at April and we went, oh my goodness, we're playing Bournemouth, we're playing West Ham, we're playing Everton, we're playing Leeds. I know that the results have been great, but we were looking at this due to our form this season going, oh, this month's great. Look at it, we're playing all the crap teams. We're not one of them, and we're nowhere near being one of them. And I've seen people concerned about next season. The gap that we have between us now and the teams that are down there is huge in terms of quality, and we can add to that this summer. So let's keep it positive. Let's get another win on Saturday, fingers crossed. And then we've got a huge game against Villa where let's hope we can get something on that. But a win in that would be fantastic. And it's one of those where suddenly you're thinking, oh my goodness, could we scrape into Europe again? If City go on and win the Champions League, then European qualification goes down to 8th place.
Does it?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's not unfeasible. I think it's unlikely, don't get me wrong, but we still have to play Villa. We still have to play Liverpool. Brighton have got a lot of games to go through. Let's see what happens. But, at least it's keeping things interesting. It's
weird because over the last couple of weeks, it doesn't feel like Marco Silva's been our manager because he hasn't been on the touchline. So he'll be back on the touchline on Saturday. Remember, it's the early kickoff on BT Sport as well. So get in the ground nice and early. Joe, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks a lot, Jack. Thanks everyone for watching.
Who would have thought it, eh? A nice, happy, almost end of the season video of the Jack and Joe show.
I don't think it's ever happened before in the Premier League, is it?
We're not biting our nails. We're not looking at other fixtures and saying we need this and that. We just need to enjoy ourselves while watching a game of football. And that's very, very easy to do. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you. Well, if we beat Villa, who knows where we'll be. But we'll see you on Wednesday anyway for a Jack and Joe show next Wednesday after the Villa game. Live or not, we shall see. Come on, Fulham, you Whites.